Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.
So my question that I posed initially was, what do you as an artist, really, I wanted to open up the question to any artist, look for in a producer? One nice thing about technology right now is everybody has access to, become a music producer. But then also the other side of it is competition increases, which I'm not complaining about. But um, how can a producer cut through the noise is really my question.
I love that question. I love your heart because it does definitely put off the energy that you want to serve people. You know what I'm saying? You want to serve the artists you want to work with. That's also a hard question because it's not something that is it's just not fair, right? Like 10 years ago, totally different answer. Shoot, 5 years ago, totally different answer. Now, in terms of like what I would look for in a producer is honestly somebody that could do way more for me than just produce. That's really what the answer is. Like somebody that could do way more than just make beats, because just making beats is just not enough anymore. And this is what I mean. Because of the stuff you pointed out with technology, specifically with the advancement of software and DAWs, digital audio workstations, the decrease in price of technology. I mean, you can get an amazing setup in your house for $1,000 on the studio side and then a nice laptop, right? That's crazy, okay? Like I just got this mic yesterday really as a backup because I saw somebody selling it. Not sure how many of you guys are familiar. This is the mic I would recommend on a professional scale. This is a Neumann TLM 102. I just picked this mic up on OfferUp yesterday. I don't need it. I got it because it was on sale, and I got this mic used once or twice for $500. This is an $800 retail mic, right? And I just picked it up, and I could probably flip it on eBay right now. With 15 years ago, you couldn't get a Neumann for under $3,000 or $2,000, right? So now, like the microphones, the technology, everything is cheaper. Everything is cheaper. Everything is easier. Then you have stuff like Splice, which has really empowered a lot of these rappers to start producing. So now production has become a commodity. Now production is just like, oh, I can get a cheap, amazing sounding microphone for $500 on OfferUp. I can get a really dope Twin Apollo or a really dope Symphony Apogee duet for a couple $100. The production has become commoditized. It's cheaper. So for a producer to cut through, what I would recommend for anybody is to do way more than just be a producer. The producer I work with, and I don't work with a ton of them, but I work with Ray Rock. Ray Rock's like my dude, right? And the thing about Ray Rock is Ray Rock does so much more than just produce, right? Ray Rock does send me beats, and I honestly don't even use like a ton of Ray Rock's beats, even though he's a phenomenal producer. On this new project I have coming out, I think I have one of his beats. But what Ray Rock offers is Ray Rock offers me multiple things. He's a guy that can piece stuff together. He can pull together musicians. He's a guy that can A&R. He's a guy that can pull together features from his relationships, right? Because he has some great relationships. He's a guy that can like project manage. He's a guy that can help me co-write. He can do so many things. And so for me, it doesn't make sense to go pay, even $100 per beat. Even free beats for me just don't make sense no more, because that's going to come with strings attached. When a producer will hit me up, hey man, I want to give you a free beat. Sweet, bro. Okay, I'll rap on it. Song comes out. Next thing you know, it's on a Nike commercial. All of a sudden, that producer feels a certain way. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, I didn't mean free. No, you said free. So I just stopped. I stopped playing that game with producers. Because why? Like, I have Ray Rock. If I'm going to give somebody a percentage of the publishing, I'd rather give my man a percentage of the publishing, not some random kid on the internet who just got a Splice membership and Logic. Like, right? And that's the thing. You don't know who's out here really cooking from scratch and who's out here just looping stuff on Splice. You really don't know who's who. So if I'm going to give somebody a percentage of publishing, I'm going to give my man a percentage of publishing. So what can you do to offer as much value to the artists you work with? How can you partner with a couple specific artists? And this is the part you're not going to like. This is the part you're not going to like. Find artists you believe in, that you're in proximity with, And if I were you, I would figure out how you could help them create the content around the music. If you can take somebody from literally being a couple hundred followers and you start helping them shoot videos and start helping them make the beats and start helping them make the music, then all of a sudden you are entitled to more than just $100 a beat. Now we're talking about you're an equity partner. You're building a career. The reality is the majority of producers don't want to do that. They're not trying to put in that kind of work. They're not trying to have that kind of grind. They're not trying to be entrepreneurial. And they rather just kick their feet up, send DMs, and think that's hustling. It's not hustling, right? Hustling is actually creating a product and selling it. Or here's the other route, is go create a platform and add value to other producers like a DJ Payne does, like these other YouTube, Curtis King. These guys do amazing YouTube content and help a lot of YouTubers or producers on YouTube to learn how to sell their beats, sell beat packs. But the answer is going to be the same whether you're a rapper or producer. The answer is going to be build a business, build a legitimate business, and you build a business by having scarce skills, by offering a ton of value, by really helping people level up and helping people get to that next level. Most people aren't willing to do that. Most people aren't. They're just not. Like, people want to go down the road of least resistance. They want to do the least amount of work, and they don't really have a vision for themselves.
I've heard you say some of these things already on other videos, so it definitely makes sense. What it actually made me think of is like an executive producer for a movie. They may not even necessarily touch the camera or even be on the set, but they're really the ones that bring all the moving parts together and actually, make the project. So it sounds like what you're saying is take more ownership in the full project and seeing the whole thing through. And it also sounds like you're saying that or the relationship's a big part of it too, because you brought up Ray Rock, and I'm sure because of having a relationship, that also adds to the idea, because you said I would rather give him the publishing who I relate to than somebody. So that makes sense.
100%. And this is what you got to think about. And by the way, Ray Rock has 10 years of relational equity with me. If it was a new producer, they're not even cutting through. Like, they're not like, I don't even want a beat pack. Like, I don't send me anything, right? So this is a producer that I have equity with. If it's a new producer, like, you better be fire with the camera and know how to edit video and be a fire producer and live around me to be able to pull up and help me shoot. Like, that's what that would require, right? It's like a local guy who's that. So then the question goes back to you. If I bounce it back to you, are there people in your area, proximity, that you can do that with? You know what I'm saying? That you can do that with and help level up. Or here's another route, right? 350 Music just referenced Mike LV. Or you become the guy that is popping as an artist producer because you've built your own Spotify following. You've built your own monthly listeners. You've built your own playlist. And then it's not about you trying to give me a beat and us like trying to go. No. If I work with you, I get access to your audience. That's powerful. People, again, but most producers don't want to put in the work. They don't want to. And Mike LV doesn't even actually make beats. He just got a popping audience. He's a hustler. He's everywhere. He's a guy that can put your song on his playlist. He's a guy that could play your song when he's at Elevation Youth, and Stephen Furtick is there, and Furtick hears your, right? Those are really powerful things to have, and most people just don't. They just don't want to put in that kind of work. And rappers are the same. I'm not picking on producers. Rappers are the same.
Yeah,
producers. Yeah. I feel like producers, my issue with producers and rappers, but producers, when my experiences, tend to feel a bit more entitled. Like, they think they're entitled to 50% of everything because they did a beat. It's like, bruh, do you know how easy it is to make a beat right now? Like, you don't just say, oh, and literally they think they're entitled to not just 50% of the publishing, but they think they're also entitled to 50% of the DistroKid split, right? The YouTube views, the YouTube revenue. And it's like, bruh, no, that's just not how the market works. If you're out there and you're getting $1,000 a beat, or you're getting 50% of the DistroKid and the Splice DistroKid end up publishing, man, keep doing, ignore everything Ruslan's telling you. Clearly you're doing something right. But if you're a producer and you're trying to get your foot in the door, it's not going to come from an entitlement mentality of like, well, I made the beat, I'm entitled to half. No, you aren't. Did you put up half the money for the music video? Did you put up half the money for the Facebook ads? Did you put up half the money for the distribution? What about the photo shoot? What about the marketing? You see what I'm saying? So producers think they're entitled to half, but you're not entitled to half, because when you look at how a record label works, a major label, artists are getting 16%. That's standard, by the way. And producers are entitled, if they're getting points on a record, are entitled to 25% of the royalty unless they get an advance against their royalty rate. And so when a producer lands a beat on an album on a major label, they're getting an advance against that 25% royalty rate that the artist gets. So we're literally talking about 16 points for the album. Cut that down to a point on the album, producer's getting a quarter of a point. A quarter of a point. Think about that for a second. A quarter of a point plus the mechanicals. In what world is a producer entitled to 50% of the DistroKid money if they didn't go 50% and put in half the work with the recording? I just did it. I just landed a placement with Nick D. I didn't charge him an upfront rate. I didn't do anything in terms of the marketing of it. I got 10% of the DistroKid split, right? And that's my man's. Like, that's my dude. You know, I got 10 as a producer. I got 10% of the DistroKid. I didn't get an upfront fee, and of course we do the publishing 50-50. See, you see what I'm saying? So like, that's the reality of where we're living in, and you got a lot of producers living in a fantasy land where they just don't understand how this stuff works, and that's on them to educate themselves. Like, they need to go out and educate themselves, because it takes way more than a good beat to get a record to actually become profitable. It takes much more than a good beat. Again, not to come down and be negative, but this is just my honest assessment, because I've dealt with this for so long, and then I've also some of my biggest records I produced. So I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I giving up anything to anyone if they're not my mans? And that's, Ray Rock's like my day one. I've known Ray Rock since 08, 07 maybe.
There's probably artists that are in a different situation where they're like, I find value in paying more to the producer because I don't want to make beats. Like, I just strictly want to rap, and I see the value, because obviously it's all, I mean, I know there's an industry standard, but in terms of value, it's kind of subjective. Like, if for some artists it's worth it, then they'll pay that. But for someone like you who does everything in-house anyway, I mean, for the most part, like, you're pressing up clothes, you're doing videos, you're doing production, you're marketing, you're running your own business. Yeah, it doesn't quite make sense. So
yeah. You're totally right. And what I would say then, those people are more attached to the perceived value you create as Wayne Classic, the producer. How can you create a professional value where you're perceived as more elite? Meaning that I just spent $400 on some Yeezys, right? That's an outlandish amount of money to spend on shoes, right? It's almost as outlandish for me to spend $400 on a beat as it is for me to spend $400 on some Yeezys. But if I ended up in the room with DJ Premier, I'm spending $500 on a Primo beat. I'm spending $1,000 on a Primo beat. Why? Because there's the social equity, there's the legend status, there's that, right? You see what I'm saying? So if you want to go that route, I don't know, how do you get to that level? How do you create a perceived value that you're an elite? And again, it's probably going to go back to you having a Spotify following or some kind of degree of social proof to say, yo, I'm that guy, right? So there are certain guys that if I had the opportunity to work with them, if I had the opportunity to work with Just Blaze, if I had the opportunity to work with, right, I would. It wouldn't make sense on paper. I wouldn't break even on it. It would be a complete flex for the sake of saying I work with so-and-so. That's not a sustainable business model. Like, I'm not going to get more streams because DJ Premier produce my beats. I'm not. Like, I'll get a little bit more clout. Maybe the old heads would be like, oh, Primo did Ruslan's beats. Wow, right? But it's actually not a good business model, and it's not going to take me to the next level. What's going to take me to the next level is consistency of content, consistency of music releases, quality music, right, over time. You see what I'm saying? So you can go that route. I just think you're better off saying, how does Wayne Classic put out his own projects, his own beats, build his own Spotify, And how does Wayne Classic add more value to the artist he works with that you're passionate about? And I think that's going to be you probably having to jump in your mixing bag, maybe, or you jumping into the video bag, maybe. But I just think I think you gotta dig a little deeper. There'll always be a market that rappers who are just wanting to pay a couple $100s a beat. There'll always be that market. There'll always be the leasing market. But I'm talking about guys that are really leveling up. You're gonna see way more Russes and way more folks like that produce and make beats than I think just artists that kind of want to just do one thing. In my opinion, and maybe because I'm just wired different. And by the way, Wayne, this is all my opinion. I could be 100% wrong on this. So I just want to let you know off top, I'm coming from a very biased perspective. And I'm also coming from a perspective where I'm really honestly just kind of jaded with a lot of producers, especially in the CHH space, because there's just so much ignorance and there's just so much lack of context of what's actually happening and who's actually benefiting from the transaction. And again, bro, every artist that I work with produces their own music. Paul Russell produces his own music. John Keith produces his own music, right? Whew. I mean, Nick D doesn't produce his own music, but he freaking shoots his own videos, right? So like he's alleviated that expense. So I'm thinking, how do I help rappers build businesses? How do I help producers build businesses? It's really going to be about developing as many scarce skills so we could all help each other out. If all of a sudden you, Wayne Classic, are the most fire video guy in the Patreon community, right? And you got a pop-in Spotify audience. You just built the 5,000 Spotify followers, and you got, I don't know, 50,000 Spotify monthly listeners. I'm just throwing it right now. I guarantee you I'm way more excited to work with you. I'm like, yo, Wayne, let's collaborate. Because then it makes sense. It's a mutually beneficial situation, right? But if you're the guy that makes fire beats, and your beats are fire, and yo, they got a cool swing, and your beats are fire. Like, your beats are legitimately fire. But it's not enough incentive for me to jump out of my system and say, let me go do something Wayne Classic, just because it disrupts my current workflow. But if there's a massive upside, then yeah. Here's a great example. Paul just did a record with A. Parker. They met through working on a record with for the Breach Christmas album. A. Parker is a fire artist. He did another record with this producer named John K. I can't remember his last name. And both of those guys had amazing Spotify followers, had amazing Spotify monthly listeners, had connections to Spotify playlists. And the last A. Parker, this man got on all kinds of blogs, and it actually led him to getting verified on Instagram. That's a mutually beneficial situation. And they split that 50-50. I stepped out. I got out of the way. Y'all go get that bag. Y'all go get y'all go do the y'all do that, right? Y'all go get, you see what I'm saying? That's a way more, and that's the second producer he just did this with in the last 8 weeks, right? He did 2 records like this, and I got out the way for both. I don't want to split. I don't want nothing. You go get that, and that helped him build his Instagram. That helped him build. So Paul currently has more monthly listeners than me on Spotify. Why? Because he did strategic collaborations with producer artists who had more value than just here's a beat, dog. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so I know this isn't cool to hear, but that's again my opinion, bro. I could be wrong.
Helpful, though.
You know what I mean?
Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.